Thank you, Asha and Woody and everyone at Buffalo Street Books for always being so welcoming and supportive of this event and making room for us and making a community space for writers and visiting writers and local writers. Thank you so much. Asha is also my neighbor, so it's good that we stay on good terms, like actual neighbors. My name is Leslie Williamson. I'm the executive director at the Saltonstall Foundation for the Arts. It's very nice to see all of you here. This is our first public event of the year. We have events throughout the summer at the Saltonstall Arts Colony. We have a brand new snazzy color brochure here, so please pick one up. If you don't know what we do or who we are an arts colony, which means that we support artists and writers from throughout New York State with juried residencies and subsidized retreat space at the colony, which is basically 5 private apartments in a really beautiful location and a very quiet space. So when poets from Brooklyn come for the first time, they get out of the car and they start to whisper because it's so quiet, and apparently that's a really nice thing if you're a poet from Brooklyn. It's also a really nice thing for poets from Ithaca, too, because all of you are welcome to come up also. Anyway, that's a little bit about who we are. We organized this event to show off Jay, who is a Saltonstall alum from 2013, who came out with his brand new book, and he brought a couple of good friends, some emerging poets, to read with him to help him celebrate. So I'm going to introduce each of them individually. Sam Ross's poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the New Republic, the Southern Humanities Review, Tuesday, an Art Project, Tin House, Guernica, Gulf Coast, and other journals. He has received fellowship support from Columbia University, Robert Wilson's Watermill Center, and the Breadloaf Writers Conference. He is also the co-editor of Circumference, Poetry and Translation, and is the poetry editor at Blunderbuss magazine, all the way from Brooklyn, New York. Please give a warm welcome to Sam Ross.
Thank you. I'm so impressed by this crowd at 12:30 on a Saturday. And it's really wonderful to be here. Thank you, Leslie, and thank you, Buffalo Street Books and Saltonstall. We've been here like 12 hours, but I'm like on Jay's wavelength. Great. So I'm just going to begin. When I was fire, I never mourned. I had to begin and begin again with hope before I could look back at what I had done and to whom. When I was fire, I felt my bull beneath me in the chute. The sky was a wall of stuck-shut windows. I hadn't thought in this century it was possible to smell God, but something in the soil the very last time. It was there when I let the bolt from under circle and face me. It was there where I bowed to him, burning. Soul in Leo. Shooting a .22 is perversely gentle. There is no real kickback. It is simply an insistent digging in the shoulder, trailed by the sour smell of burnt gunpowder, shells sputtering from the magazine in a ticking of brass. When I buy a pass to the basement rifle range, my instructor advises that I conceal my gun on the train in a guitar case. Aiming at paper torsos, I see it is foolish to wait for winter days to lengthen. How weak a dependence on light is. Like a body easily betrayed, it can kill a man. In the Persian miniature Soul in Leo, the lion is its own composite of animals eaten by the lion, plaited in the mane, woven in the tail, folded inside haunches like contortionists in an open-walled box of hide. Uncover enough of what you are, and the world won't think to look for anything else. midst. I remember 4 humps of earth pushing out of prairie grass west of the river. Burial mounds, one following another, a row of muddy children and the fat shadows swelling behind them. Of this life, my friend, she said it was just a procedure. I felt it passing through revolving doors. Everything thereafter is fragments, each object, space, lit by half light, halved by the turning glass. At any minute, I am in motion, in the sorrowful architecture of a body. At any minute, my mouth greens, fills with the smell of torn leaves, blue cheese. A library teeming with wet dogs is a memory of home. Mortal coverage. Now, years from now, years ago, now again, we'll want to fathom breaking points. We'll long to know what everyone wants and how to get it. That's politics, as my father says. In politics, everyone's heart is larcenous. Today, they've decided something. Maybe it's not the same thing, but they've decided something material. Unstoppable? Say anything. I killed a man, I started a war, I disappeared, and now I'm back. Ask anything. Who's next? What time in the morning? And when do we leave? Where will we go? As for me, all afternoon I watch some run bravely across the bridge. When the sun goes down, I turn on the projector, stay late at the office with my friend, drinking wine and watching more. Maybe it will come to this isn't what we meant, and we changed our minds. That's happened before. Tonight, people run against tanks, and the tanks turn back. What do you remember? Nothing lasts forever. Second mouth. My heartbeat, as slow as a Siberian baby's before surgery, tucked in a bank of snow. I'm getting older walking this volcano they call active like it isn't lazy. Like keep up other volcanoes. See how easy? It huffs white out of the foramen in its skull, which makes me want a second mouth. Opening not for air, saliva, or words to escape. What then? Presence. I thought I deserved this. Smallish measure of danger to pirouette on a threshold without tumbling down rubble-made glass by last spring's eruption and the eruption before that. Spines of black stud the surface, but underneath, ash, warm enough to warm me. I'm still not dead. Decisions in a dream. Supposing you were obliged to abide by them. Would it spell trouble when the sun goes down? Or fear made wonderful, snow bright, weaponized in Brooklyn bigger than your mind? Supposing at the end of night lie lamps, a gold room winter readied between trains and the road, the air raw. What God I loved there, I loved for a time. Supposing again, and without limitation, if I prayed to the handles of shopping bags nodding on the porch, their white and scarlet amaryllis. Faith was never easy, Could it be less than foolish? A prayer for moving down the street, years collapsing under the wheels on the bus, some bright new flirtation with the ordinary world. This poem is called Recommendation Number 9, which is a bullet point in the FDA's revised recommendations for reducing the risk of human immunodeficiency virus by blood and blood products. And the recommendation, I encourage you all to look it up. Some cities keep making musical chairs of a home. Some money ends. Shortfall, and away we go. I belong to a new house. My room lit by the red roof of the house next door. The first night, 3 cards. Magic, lamentation, liberty. Second night, I cut my hand reaching for a knife above the shelf, hidden in the child's best interest. Blood is a hot palm of red mercury resisting form. After hurricanes, I tried to offer mine. Deferred, though I had heard there is always a need. Refuse me. Refuse me. I want that. I am living in blood's own dream. Little secret. The room is large enough to imagine someone imagine you. Small enough for you to believe imagining is real. In this sense, it is nation, or sympathy, or the windows smashed into cool zones. To crave terror is easier than almost anything. We are not foolish people, Catherine said, consoling me, but I have not confessed everything to her yet. I am a foolish person. I read to feel a person's pain, razors cutting webs of hardened tissue. In a yellow house, I sleep to squint, make blue hills of white sheets and dawn. Black's Beach. Stripped to swim in the cindered morning, we go slack in white caps. Then swept far from our clothes, we lose them. Who will help us and how comes after have we lost the plot, no more wanting what we thought. We hike up a switchback naked, where sandstone bluffs break past silver rows of fog burning between cars. It is no dream, I know, the sea, never still or safe or finished with us. Just this once, seconds merely, and the breakers mute. The sky is clear, the water is clear, the key has no spare. I just have 2 more poems. Thank you again so much for having us, and to Jay and Marina especially, lifelong friends who I admire so much. Blankets. This poem is a bit of a work in progress, but it also represents my first foray into the digital humanities. Blankets. High as a pyre, or mounds for the unnamed, I found so many in the alley soaking the sky's shift, orange to pink to dark. Another spread over 2 bodies in the year's shared bed. Property disputed the length of night's quarrel, then gone. Another, blue and blonde when I was alone in the volcano town, could fold thin as envelopes and still cover 3. Of glaciers, we say they blanketed the world, except the metaphor has thinned. In springs of this age, the The Alps wear white cloth to slow their disintegration. Inevitably, I've seen more, hanging from wire, torn to whips. But in all of Shakespeare, only 6 ever speak of them. Clotton, Edgar, Falstaff, a fool, and a player, and Lady Macbeth, who begs night to thicken, so heaven won't see her beneath a cover of dark. We are unhesitant covered. Exchange. Gaps in delphinium along a ridge dim the difference between blue flowers and little apertures to the sea. I almost wrote ocean. One day, a man considered desertion. The next he deserted. In return for his release, 5 others crossed the ocean. I almost wrote sea. When planes pass in the sky or meet in disaster, these are details you can't tell from kissing. Thank you so much.
Oh, Marina, a trained professional on the bus at 5 a.m. this morning to get here. I will always be in awe of you for that. Marina Blitshteyn came to the U.S. as a refugee in 1991. She is the author of 4 published or forthcoming chapbooks, including Russian for Lovers, Nothing Personal, Skills, and Sheet Music. She works as an adjunct instructor of composition and literature. Raised in Buffalo, New York, she now lives and resides in and works in Brooklyn. Please give a warm welcome to Marina Blitshteyn.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's worth every non-sleep hour. I'm not even kidding you. Thank you very much to Salt and Stall, to this beautiful bookstore. I just love reading with books around me. There's nothing better. And thank you as always to Sam and Jay for having me here. I really appreciate it. So I'm gonna read some fun poems in my mouth. They're kind of a mouthful, so I have some water just in case. But I work a lot with sound, and I figure since it's almost spring, it's kind of spring, I'm just gonna do these from a forthcoming book called Two Hunters. Cicadas are coming. In a thin tin din in a run-down row on a done-up lane, they're coming to slather their slinky wings on a ragged branch of a tied-down tree. They're slithering in all slippery and slow like a nicked can of worms with a ladylike languish. They're coming to whisper sweet new nothings in eager ears of easy evenings. I'm a subtle lover, so I lavish the signs, the heavy hiss of a summer body. I love the lift of a tinsel hair on the sleeve of my love by a sneaky breeze. They'll lounge in air like I linger on porches, no real will but the task of a dusk in a tense embrace. I trust their stutters, I trust their coming in secret lust. The cicadas are coming, so true story. Borrowed trouble. My burro was worried about me. I barreled through, though, bothered by my mother's calls, collected enough to connect. My burro told me, "Orange, you glad I'm not your mother?" I bartered my way to a cigarette. "Orange, you happy yet?" A serious threat, a surfeit, a certain fate, a surer fret. But my burro believes in me yet. Tomorrow the red thread through rubble will rob me of rubber and bread. Tomorrow will read like a rebel. 14 ways. I was of 2 minds, 2 peaches on each limb, 2 sweet picks of a plum. I saw 2 kinds of birds in my tree, 2 round tweaks of wings, 2 flippant flutters of wrong. I too was free. In 2 broad sweeps, 2 met paths at a peak. Speaking of pathos, 2 pecks on a sweet cheek, 2 swept peaks of snow like 2 puckered lips under teeth, or punctured and raw like 2 chapped chaps licking each other's wounds to death. I was of two breaths in parallel directions. One liked the thrill of trilling birds, the other preferred the fur on each peach. I took a look at the facts and thought two arms were enough to hang on and strong enough to be hung. Gender is body. So the creases want to flatten, and if the skin sags, colors quits, and if parallel desires skip a step, and if desire is a gender twist, and if we see creases deceased, and if we ceased and swam instead, and if skipping a step meant stitching a seam shut, and if we seam shut we mean business, and if business is a gendered body it screams, and if it screams id is in, and if it knows its own folds but broke them, and if it's broken to begin with, which stitch, and if it misses, which of this makes me a miss, and if they do exist, which of them blows me kisses? Brain Heart Infusion. This is for my friend Martha, who is like a molecular biologist and is getting married next month. So the Brain Heart Infusion is actually like I think someone here would probably know more than me, but it's a substance on which you test mosquitoes, for example. Malaria was her expertise. Brain Heart Infusion. I want to be a worse-off broth, or why bother? A ground agent capable of change, capable of being caged, then just capable. The coarser habits flatten to a fine powder. There you test the nature of your prone diseases poses, a dissolution or otherwise a disservice to man. Martha, I want a man I can examine closely, not suspect I have a false lead, and follow up on it with a certain patience. Martha, pray for my brain. Bacteria expands or something happens in human blood that feels like tension. I read about it often. Your red cells soften to a fold, and some can't handle the explosion. They want to be held straight. They want to be capable of change. They go about their business till an agent joins them, full of love and capability and activation energy and cause, full of cause. I'm full of it. Martha, pray for my heart, and by pray I mean study it. It's so full or over it. Martha, a dis-ease seethes in me, displeases me, sneaks around until I'm all transfusion, suffusion, effusion, until I'm all used up by my muses. We have no hypothesis to test, so we go on our guts or our skulls, and sometimes they grind to a halt, and sometimes I want an alternative. Sometimes I think it could work if I nurture the culture, and sometimes they all die out like quirks, and sometimes they want a consumption, and sometimes they stand to maintain. Sometimes they need to maintain their place in the food chain. Sometimes they dine on fine powders and milk, and sometimes let's talk about it. Martha, let's think about it sometime. You have a boy at home. I feel alone, but I'm working on it. The same dish, a new egg. Martha, I can't make omelets, but I'm working on it too. You have work to do. Your own blood is and responsive. You encompass all things. I don't know my type. Sometimes I like to just think about it until it's exhausted, but then what happens to my heart, Martha? What happens to the other parts? What happens if I get this bite? Will I die? What happens if I start this project like you did? Is that another 6 years of my life? Survivor guilt. What do you deserve? The same body you're saddled with, the same laws of your fathers and mothers, the same old sickness of the nerves. Your mother's mother heard the word, dismissed it. Your therapist suggests deserve in place of desert. You say desert and mean it. Don't you want love, a fellow traveler? Don't you still go home at night touching your body with somebody else's hands? You don't mean loathing. You don't mean loafing. You mean loads. You mean men and history. You mean multitudes greet you every morning in your bed. You mean many for man, the whole chorus, all the saints you found yourself a part of. You don't believe in sin. It's Zen. It's sons and daughters. It's a sign. We all inherit our parents, our habits a sham, a shame, your manners in shambles. Come eloquence, a cardinal cure. I'm talking to myself again. I want to earn advances, make them count. Want to believe in love in all its glory, all its forms, any body, any bed, stuffed to the posts with the past. It will collapse in on itself. It will. It's me that earns it. It's my lot. I carry it now. I care. Just three more poems. This is called War Games, which is a game that boys play that replicates war, actually. I watched with carnage in my heart your energies. To discharge those soldiers like that, to edge a man with a pinky tip, to cheat, in other words, genius, a testament of wit as of skill. I snuck in, quiet as a mouse on her toes, set our goods on the counter, musing on my luck. It'd go like this, sad and slow, like a death dirge, not a firing squad salute. Your men with their colors, my women show up, sentimental about the old days. Some have made it out, others remember our own war cries. Here you all are arguing about the law. Your voice projects all its confidences. I hear your passion and imagine mine the way you must have heard it. What else slides off the end of the set like that? Two hunters. My fur touches hers, and we're two animals caught in a form together, warm and alone in our feeling. I purr low from my heart, she gurs from under, a grumble emanating heat, want, a hunger animating her. But I'm a shyer beast, teeming with unease. I want, and wanting pleases me. I cut the cord, and we're two hunters trapped in a form together with no release. This is the last poem called Castles. Thank you again for listening on this Saturday afternoon. It's a real pleasure to be here. Castles. I tied a string to the moon, called it a castle, called it a noose. By then it was noon and pale, called it marble, called him a muse. Went to sail away, called a canoe, a beautiful ship. Pulled myself up by the rope, but then it broke. Left myself with a bruise, a ruse. How curious. Thank you.
Well, here's my confession. 20 years ago, I was a bookseller in an independent bookstore in Seattle. I loved it. I was there for 5 years, kind of cut my teeth on the independent book world, moved back east and ended up in the arts community, and now I'm running this arts colony, but poetry has always just terrified me. I've been very insecure about poetry. I've never really read poetry. So here I am running this arts colony where almost every month there's at least a poet coming that I have to talk to and introduce and kind of get to know. So during the summer residency program, which is a competitive juried process where you apply to get in and you're granted a month of solace and peace and really good cooking at Salt and Stall, I usually pay everybody a visit, have a little conversation, whip up a little newsletter, try to get to know the people that are there that I'm supposed to be leaving alone, but that I'm also trying to get to know. And Jay was a part of a cohort that came during my second summer, so I'd really only been there about a year and a half. So you were really one of my first poet friends. And I remember Jay really helped me understand how difficult it is, not only to be a writer, but really to be a poet in particular. We had this really nice conversation, and as well educated as you are, and as talented as you are, and as fabulous a writer as you are, and as hard as you work, producing something like this is very difficult, and the cards are stacked so high against you. And I don't think I really understood that until talking with Jay that summer. And residency programs like Salt and Stall can play a very small but very important supportive role in the life of a writer. And it's still a total crapshoot, and you never really know when someone is coming to you, at what point in their life they are, whether they've ever had anything published, whether they even consider themselves or identify as a writer. But as much as we can do to support that and to encourage that and to be there for a writer maybe when they need it the most, and Jay was putting this book together at Salt and Stall, and at the time it really was just, you had no idea. It hadn't been sent out. It wasn't really a full manuscript yet. There were piles of poetry books on the table. Jay was spending a lot of that month reading other poets and beginning to think about how this book could come together. There were little scraps of paper on a table with each poem that he thought might be a part of this book and in which way they might be organized. So it means so much to welcome you back and to sort of see that your words are now finding a broader audience, and that you can bring this book back to Ithaca and sort of share it with the audience in a place where it started really means a lot to Salt and Stall. So I'm really glad that you are all here for this. All right, now for the bona fides. Oh, it's so nice. It's a nice kind of welcome home. And so for us, it feels like a book launch, I guess. Jay Deshpande is the author of Love the Stranger from Yes Yes Books. It was named one of the top debuts of 2015 by Poets and Writers. A Kundiman Fellow, he has held residencies at the Salt and Stall Arts Colony in 2013 and the Vermont Studio Center, and was selected for the 2015 Scotty Merrill Memorial Award by Billy Collins. His poems have appeared in Boston Review, Sixth Finch, the Pen Poetry Series, Poem a Day, Prelude, and elsewhere. He also lives in Brooklyn and has made a very welcome return visit to Ithaca to read to you this afternoon, so please give a warm welcome to Jay Deshpande.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Buffalo Street Books. Thank you, Spring Rights. And thank you all for being here. This is really so lovely and feels like, yeah, such a homecoming. I haven't been back in Ithaca in 2.5 years, but it was so powerful for me when I came here for Salt and Stall that really, the minute I got out of the car yesterday, I was like, oh, okay, everything is all right now. And then I got to see these guys come to town, which is fantastic. It's also, it's always an honor to be around poets whose work I really love. But it's an especially great time because there's all these things to celebrate for them that have happened recently that I'm really excited about. Sam was just named a Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center Fellow for next year, for this fall. And in addition, Marina's first full-length book is coming out from Argos Books in 2017? Next year. So basically, I get to ride these guys' coattails for a while down the road, which is going to be really fun. I'm going to read mostly from Love the Stranger, but bounce around a little bit. This is called Apologia Pro Vita Sua, which means a defense of one's life. We don't have much time, so we have to work slowly. We unwrap the small, almost animal form until it whimpers under the heat of our gaze. We put the books up on the shelf. We take them back down again. At evening, chin back and the neck like a skyscraper, we give up smoke, a colony of ghost howl. Color of light that collects on rooftops, with desire propped like a water tower in the corner, each day ends in the labor of small hands through delicate hair. I remember a time with a woman I knew only as the sound of her hair. After we had both come and spent ourselves on the smells of each other, we went up on the roof and lay down on my coat, wishing that people could see the stars in this city. And I remember how I slipped into sleep for a moment and was back by the hayfield of my boyhood with my brother, crickets sparking in the failing sun that paced out beyond us and burnished the tips of the nearest pines. How the edge of that forest was only slightly farther away, but I never touched it. It seems I am always running ahead of my needing, looking out from a higher window of the body to see the edges of things, the weight of a pound of grapes in my hand, that tactile rush of consolation. But I am here now. I am resting my head against the part of myself I am willing to put down. Why didn't we enter that field? Why didn't we cross to that border, Neil, to see what it felt like to push the first foot down into the shadow and the cooler ferns? At night, my breath slacks into darkness, and I feel the air winnow through my arm. I am beginning to see how I am that field, that moment pushing sunset, blank distance to the tree line, how the woods at the end of me are porous, giving, how they shimmer on air. The roots are moving out of sight, the crickets singing through me. Tonight I will sleep like a just man, a good man, a man who has hurt others in order to lay his head down. This is called Threatening Weather. When I woke up in the city, a man was taking me out to eat in a purple building. On the table, he had arranged upturned wine glasses, his silver napkin, the peel of an orange, the contents of his many pockets. His hands fluttered over the objects, placing and replacing them. Imagine, he said, this is a map of the center of your mind. When you are awake, it is at the center. When you are asleep, it is at the center. Only when you reside in the dead place between can it slip away. Only then can you roam around outside of it, outside the dead center of your mind. The hour was not late, but his face was moonlight. The man would not look up. I asked him how we knew each other. We were both born here, he said, and pointed to the silver napkin, which trembled as though a small creature, warm and fearful, cringed beneath its folds. One of my main sort of visual influences that comes into a lot of poems in this book, or came into them in earlier forms and then disappeared and comes back when I don't expect it to, is Magritte. I spent a lot of time looking at the paintings of René Magritte, and for a while in earlier forms, the book was largely based on those paintings. But one of them that stayed is a poem called The Lovers, named after the painting The Lovers, which you may have seen before. It shows a man and a woman kissing, in sort of like a two-shot of them right together, but there's like fabrics over their faces, so you don't see the heads, you just see two people in an embrace. The Lovers. When I reached for her for the first time, what we groped toward had already unmade itself. The bar stool crashes down, and we are back outside, deaf to nearly everything. She starts speaking her words on my face, but I stop her. Bare legs and skirt pressed up against the side of a car, at the side of a street, familiar story. A hunger becomes so animal I can't see the shape of the whole. What it took for me to lie down in the brief wreckage of our lives. Like a drop of blood into water, I watched the loss spread out, heralding some reaction. I live quietly now, by myself, mildly hallucinating. In Magritte's The Lovers, it's a dream seduction, figures locked in profile in a kiss you cannot see, shadow where the faces meet, and there are no faces, only the two, man and woman, held apart by the colorless cloth covering the head of each. Sculptural folds of the permanent kiss, which isn't. I had the idea that one shroud held them both, one sheet like the garment over furniture in a country house, that same indifferent smock, only tighter for the strictures of love. The sheet wrapped double about his neck and pulled around to hers, kept off the bare shoulder, that place where you can imagine her chin. What part of us must stay under a separate cloth? There is something uncommunicated in Magritte. Perhaps I go to that. My hand on her wrist, my hand showing her the way to me, guiding her down a street where I have never opened my eyes. Behind those painted figures, a storm without center rising. How they ever found their way to each other. Recently, Sam and Marina and I were actually all touring in Southern California together, reading and hanging out, eating a lot of fish tacos. And we were in Los Angeles, and I was really interested by this thing I'd been hearing about of, because of the drought last year, people spray painting their lawns with like a biodegradable green paint so that it doesn't look like it's all dead grass. And I listened to a podcast where a man who works for one of the companies that's making a fortune doing this was explaining his work. And he said, that's the American dream, is to have a green lawn. So this poem is called That's the American Dream, is to have a green lawn. almond green or Oxford green, road teeth bearing chartreuse, or the neon sewn into the spines of animals we would rather rub up against than let them breed at home. We roam noctilucent censer green, or brilliant appearance of the mage green, hue of soft father trembling in the corner, or dead in my sights green, or teensy-weensy picnic problem set between the fork and knife green of we found it there, and green of we'll take it from here, to the sod put down in trails, in tears. We keep our thumbs, or green like your first lover brought to silence by the great field. The invasive species acts in moral commons. Here I'll mow and inhabit. We feel so good as it's getting easy being green by chemical love, and love, you put the good bed down, turf or foe. You cover up. Let's sleep now. Shh, green, sweet, sleep. Let's sleep. Let's cover it in money. This is called On Speaking Quietly with My Brother. True story. Starts with a true story. You who threw the rock at the back of my head as hard as you could at 4 because you thought this was how to make a stone skip on the ocean. I have watched you in the dark of a yard where we can only see each other by a lamp left on some rooms away. We can see only one another's chin. Soon you will stay up through the night after I fall into a laughing sleep. 2 moths dust the same screen for remembered light. We have all been removed from the lyrics, brother. Our names will be stricken from the papers. When I think of you and me and recall some adolescent sunrise, standing on rooftops, blue still the island, but the bowl of it about to fill with light, it is perhaps strange and horrible to think one day one of us will die and the other will be alive. Volume turned up, his mouth now weighing twice as much. We cannot be excused from this device of road and harrow, from this weight we heft and heave. So you will be the sister, and I will be the sister, and you are about to give me my words. Time for the favorite words of any poet. I have 2 poems left. This is called Commemoration. For 7 months he fought himself. He saw what he had lost. The streets became romantic and then were hushed with weather. He tried several manners of speaking, then put them back down. He pushed away the obvious. His hand was a comb through fleece. The city moved around him faster. There were flies in the morning light, drunk festivals forgotten, and more names than he could pick up, spoken on terraces. After a while, he didn't believe that she had been all that he'd said she had been. He felt a quiet, and sometimes he hated it. Then a voice came to him and said, "Don't lose your longing. This is what makes you a willow among willows. You seek a calm that comes from knowing you have made only correct choices, but we do not come here for that. We come here to press our backs up against the invisible, to wake up in the night with a cough that becomes the spring all over again and makes us toss and turn. We come here for alleviation, but what we're here for is light. Soon, in a day, in a year, you will be a blessing again, your breath a prayer. And you will know her for what she was to you, broad bay, rising sun, a truth you won't run away from. Listen to those trees saying she will never come back. She'll never come back. But what you felt extends. It goes on, and you must keep that for as long as you live. Come, pick up your arrows. The animals are moving again. Are we all familiar with who Chet Baker is? Okay, Chet Baker, the mid-century jazz trumpet player and also singer. I've got a lot of poems named for Chet Baker, but they're not about Chet Baker. So don't think about Chet Baker when I read this poem, which is called Chet Baker. Thank you again, Leslie and Spring Writes and Buffalo Street Books. Chet Baker. The way someone loves me in the dictionary is as good as any other. I keep looking for the proper sun to lace my tongue with, to burn on me for days. There's an arrogance when the solo hits. It's the paginated clamor of the car crashes I keep beside me in the bed. But I always knew I would be lucky. I have that thing about my heart. Thank you.